Hey guys, figured I'd do another video and just do some talking and stuff as I'm going through. We got a mini Z race this weekend, so I'm getting stuff ready to go, and I'll kind of explain what I'm gonna run and what I'm doing as far as I just do routine maintenance and stuff on them now. So the one that's right here in front of you is kind of an interesting car. We only run these at the local club, but they're a lot of fun. It's a 100%, well, 100, I say 100%. Everything's 3D printed except for the electronics and the battery and stuff in them. But the chassis are all 3D printed. The body with the Euro truck, we run them with the Euro truck bodies on them, and they're all 3D printed. So, and then I'm just, like I said, I'm just checking it over to make sure everything's okay. If you got a 3D printer, they're a neat kit to print. They sell them on Colts. I think the files are about $30. And for us, it's been well worth it. I mean, we have a blast with them. They, as far as motors and ESCs and stuff, one of the things that we have a rule set in place at our local club track, because most of the stuff that we run is under the 28 SRA rules, which are kind of strict. And they've kind of made some changes. So we have some like specific club rules, like we have to run a blinky ESC, so everything has to be zero timing on the cars. Motors have to be Houston RC motors, which is what this one has. And it's the whole reason why they went to the Houston RC motors is supposedly they're guaranteed to be within 2% of the next one. So it's supposed to keep racing fairly even and more fair, I guess. So like I says, you know, you can't run any timing on the ESC or anything. If you get into doing this though, it's, guys, just so you know, spec racing gets more expensive than other types of racing because you have to run specific equipment. So this one's got, like I said, the chassis is about $30 to print if you buy the files, and then it uses mini Z wheels. The electronics are what get a little bit spendy. These ESCs I'm running, I've been testing them for a while, and I actually really like them. I was running the Hobby Wing Mini 28s, but I went to the Yeah Racing. These Hacktronic ESCs, they're a little bit less money, and I like the resolution, throttle resolution on them better, and they work awesome. And they're, like I said, they're a little bit less money. And then you just need a 2S battery and a transponder, and I'm running everything now on a FlySky Noble. So, and this is the receivers that the Noble uses. I don't know if you guys have done very much with the more expensive mini Zs, but everything is like a serial JST. Everything's smaller, so you can get these receivers for, I think they're about $40 a piece. So like I said, the electronics do add up a little bit. So, but it's what the cost of running spec racing. So, and I mean, I just go through, like, I try to put them away clean. So this car is really clean. I just check to make sure bearings, front wheels are spinning okay, and everything. There's nothing like physically broken, no parts are cracked or anything on it, and everything looks good, and then it's ready to run. So the chassis though it's got quite a bit of adjustment and stuff on it. You can set your ride height, you can set how stiff the chassis is here and stuff for the motor pod. They're actually neat, and they're a lot of fun. Like I says, it just depends on, again, I can't stress it enough. You have to go, if you're going to get into racing, you have to go and look and see what your local track is running, because you want to stay within those parameters so you can race with those guys. I had a comment put up that bothered me a little bit for a day or so, that one of the videos that I put up like 11 months ago, the car was the car that I had in the video was a highly modified Mini Z, and it wouldn't be able to run in the box stock class where this viewer was from. And I understand that. That's why I explained to you guys to, and can't stress it enough, to check with your local track on what they're running and what the rules are. That car wasn't highly modified in my eyes though. It had an aftermarket rear pod on it and a disc dampener. Now, and this is what I want to explain also, because under the 28 SRA rules that we run, we don't run an actual traditional box stock class at our local track. Under the 28 SRA rules, we run what they call a RM spec class. So with that RM spec class, you're allowed to run a rear disc dampener, and you're allowed to run a few other parts on the car because it's not a box stock class. So like this is my MR03 that I run in the RM spec class. Okay, and the reason why you're able to run a rear disc dampener, and you can run an aftermarket one if you want. The reason why I'm running the plastic one on here is because this car has a LM pod on the back of it to get everything in the car as low center of gravity as possible. So this car essentially is a box stock car because you can buy them this way. This was a 98 millimeter chassis in the beginning, and I bought the parts to turn it into a LM car. So it's got the factory diff, it's got the factory motor in it. This is the factory LM pod and disc dampener for the rear. Really the only aftermarket things that are on this car are obviously the tires, because you don't have to run the box tires that they come with because the tires are garbage. So other than that, really the only hop-ups on this car is this spring holder right here on the front, which just all this does is keep the springs from popping out of the front end if you get hit in one of the front wheels. It does have the PN low-down knuckles on the front, which are legal because when we were at an out-of-town race, I think it was Utah last year, everybody was they were hitting the barriers, and they were breaking the plastic Kyosho what do you call it, knuckles. So with that being said, they allowed the use of the aluminum knuckles on the front, and it's just a strength thing so they don't break. The Kyosho, I've busted numerous of the Kyosho ones, and they're really hard to get. A lot of parts for the MR03 anymore have been discontinued. You can't get them. If you are able to get them, it takes sometimes months to get them. So they did this as an alternative. So other than that, this car is 100% completely stock except for the springs in the front, which even in box stock you are able to change, the knuckles, and the LM pod on the back. But like it says, every part on the car is a Kyosho part except for the knuckles. And the reason why they allow you to run the PN knuckles on the front end of these cars is because they are zero camber. Kyosho makes the knuckles for the front end. I don't know if they make a zero or not, but I know most of them have camber in them. So this is what we run as a box stock class. And there's stuff that me personally I like better running the RM spec class. One of the big ones is that I can use my Noble transmitter. Most of the club box stock classes, you have to run the factory Kyosho transmitter, which I don't like. So, and that's just a personal preference. So I try to run the classes that I can use my Noble because there's benefits to using your Noble versus the other ones. Now this car is an LM car. It's got the Mercedes body on it. So when I bought that's the other thing with the LM cars is if you don't buy the whole body kit, you can't get the front wheels. The front wheels on these LM cars are actually smaller than traditional box stock wheels. They are 17 millimeters in diameter instead of 19 or 20 that the other cars come with. And the only way, you can't buy the wheels separate. the only way you can get the wheels is to buy the whole body kit. So that's why, and some places in a box stock class, they won't let you run a 102 millimeter. Most of the places that I race at, you can run the 102 millimeter cars because you can still buy a ready set in an LM. So that's why you're able to do that. Now, I take both with me to the races. I use this car, which is, like I says, MR03, and I also take my MR04, which is brand new, and I run this quite a bit also. But this is 98 millimeter. It's the new platform from them, so the front suspension is totally different than the MR03. The knuckles are already flipped. There's a lot of stuff that's different on the car, and if you guys want, I'll do an in-depth video on the MR04 and the differences between it and the MR03. Now, I run this one at 98 millimeters, and it's all box stock, except for it has Nexx Racing knuckles on it, because they're also a zero camber, and they're the only ones right now that are making zero camber front knuckles like this for the MR04. So I chose to go with these. PN doesn't make a lot of parts for the MR04 yet. I don't know if that's going to change or if it's going to get better, whatever. So the reason why I take both of these to run, it depends on what the track setup is, on which car I run. If I'm running box stock, if it's a really, really wide, sweepy, fast track, I will run my 102 millimeter MR03 because it'll run at a faster speed around the track, and you don't have to worry about having a ton of steering or anything like that in the car. If it's a smaller, tight track that's more technical, I will run the MR04 on the 98 millimeter chassis because it handles better than the 102 through the tight corners and all of that type of stuff. So there's different scenarios where you run different cars, and they can be in the same class, but most tracks won't let you like start running one race with the 102 millimeter chassis and then switch to the 98 if you think it would be faster. Usually whatever car you enter that day, that's the car you're running in that class, because there's no switching it up. So those are the three main classes I'm gonna run probably this weekend this is only two, I'm sorry. So I'll run RM spec, and I'll run the Euro truck, and then I will probably run, I haven't decided yet. I've got other cars that I can show you that it'll be a choice. I'll take a bunch of cars with me to the races, but I don't always run them all. I've added some cars since the last time I was doing videos quite a bit that I can show you. And like I says, if you guys want me to do more in-depth stuff on them, just leave me some comments on the video and I'll do which cars you guys want. I don't want to do too much content anymore this year that you guys really don't want to see. So this is my other MR04. This is my MR04 Evo car. So this one's 100% brushless. So, and you can do a ton of mods to these. So this is a totally separate class. We really don't run it here. We're trying to get it popular. This is a censored only board, and it's the first one that Kyosho's done like this. So you have to run the Kyosho motors at this point because nobody makes an aftermarket cable other than PN to use an aftermarket motor, and we're not allowed to run PN motors at our local track. So I'm waiting for, hopefully Houston RC is going to be putting one out pretty soon. Now, as you can see on this one has some other stuff. This one has the racing knuckles on the front, which I really, really like. They're awesome. And they're just a little bit different than the Nexx racing ones. And like I said, I can get into more detail on that with detailed videos on the specific cars. This one also was running a Nexx racing rear pod that holds a motor. It's the low CG motor pod for a flat motor. I think you guys can see it there. So, and then the rear disc dampener. And it's all legal to run like that. You're allowed to run. This one I usually run in. We've been running some demo races with them here locally. But if I go out of town and race a Kyosho Cup race, this is the brushless car I run. Because Kyosho Cup, really the only regulation that's different is that you run a narrow or a wide chassis. But you can run any of the Kyosho hop-ups, which is R246 or equivalents and stuff like that. I go with the Nexx racing stuff just because it's a little bit less expensive than the R246 stuff. And again, the Kyosho parts are hard to get a hold of a lot of times. So this is a fun class. I can get into more detail on this one too down the road if you guys want. I'm just trying to kind of show you what I'm running now just to give you guys an idea that I do a lot of spec racing, but I also do a lot of other classes too that, again, like I said, I can get into detail more. These, now the next two I'm going to show you tend to get more expensive. So, and like I said, I don't run all these on the same race weekend. I'll pick 2, maybe 3 classes at the most that I run, and that's what I end up running. Now this is my lipo stock car. This is a GT car. This one's got quite a bit of money in it too because of all the aluminum upgrades. It's also running the Hacktronic ESC. This one's running the Reflex Racing high power battery. And also, again, a Houston RC 2500 kV motor because of the regulations that we have at our local track. Now, when I take this one out of town, excuse me, when I take this one out of town, I change the ESC and the motor out of it, and I run a PN 2500 kV motor or 3500 depending on which class they're running, because I can set this car up with either a hard plastic body or I can set it up with a Lexan body. So depending on what class I want to run in, I'll set it up whichever way I want and race it that way. This car has a lot of stuff that you don't get with the regular chassis. Like it's got a lot of reflex parts on it that are aftermarket. Again, I can get into more detail with this car down the road if you guys want, or you guys are interested in these, or what you want to do. So that's my lipo stock car or my GT 3500 car. So I'm also running a Formula One car now. Now this chassis is totally different, and this one I will do I will do a dedicated video to this car if you guys want, because there's a lot on this one. And these get a little bit more expensive to build because of the pods on the back. This has a PN AA arm front end on it. This chassis is a PN 3.0 chassis, so it runs 2 1S batteries on either side instead of a 2S lipo for balance and stability. It has the PN rear pod, PN gear diff in it, and again, a Houston RC 2500 kV motor in it. Now these, again, like I said, these are not for a beginner. I know they look cool and all that, but they are a little tricky to drive. They are extremely fast, and they get expensive to build. There is about $600 in this car by the time you get all the aftermarket stuff and the extras that I put on it and all that added up. So this one is running a Hobby Wing Mini 2080 ESC in it. And this is probably one of my favorite classes right now to run. Once you get the car set up and dialed in, they run really well. It's an expensive class to run. So, and it's all of these are like spec classes. So like I said, the most expensive classes you can run in any type of racing are spec classes. So that's the Formula One. And then I haven't run it very much, and I think I'm going to end up selling this car. But this is my AAA 3500 car. This is a MR03 Evo car. And the reason why this one is a AAA 3500 is because this is sensorless. It's not censored like my MR04, which I like better than this car. But without having a sensor cable for the aftermarket motors, I'm kind of stuck with having to run the MR04 in the Kyosho classes. This car I can run in the AAA 3500 class, and it's extremely fast again, and it's a lot of fun to drive. And you can these get a little bit more expensive to build. Most of the guys are running the PN 2.5 chassis with these cars. I chose to do mine on a MR03 Evo chassis, and it runs just as fast as the PN 2.5. This has the upgraded VE chassis that has the gold connectors and everything on it for the battery connectors and stuff. On this car, I've got, I can't remember if it's a Nexx or a PN on the back end. It might be a PN on the back end of this one for the motor pod. Again, it's another low CG motor pod. This is the Nexx Racing mono front end on the front end of this one. It's essentially like the factory MR03 front end, except it's all aluminum, and it gives you the ability to adjust camber, caster, stuff like that you can do on the more advanced, I don't know if more advanced is the right word for it, but the faster classes, like a lot of guys will run these AAA 3500s right before they move up to a lipo class. So that's pretty much it for the cars that I'm running consistent now, Mini Z wise. And like I says, I can get into more detail on each one of them and how I set them up, and and do ride heights and what tires I'm running, stuff like that for different track conditions. But I just wanted to put this video out just a little bit for me, for peace of mind too, because of that comment that was made about how the other one that I posted up 11 months ago wasn't an actual box stock car. And I totally agreed with the guy that it's not a box stock. But we're not running traditional box stock here locally, and I run what we're able to run here. So that's the difference with all the different rule sets and stuff that you run. It's different at almost every track. And it's a lot of times the club races, the rule sets are different. They run different classes. They allow you to do different things with the club racing side of it versus racing like a regional race or and stuff like that, which are bigger, that you get points if you make so many races a year, stuff like that. I mean, it's all different rule sets that you do follow, and I follow all of them to a T. It just depends on what I'm racing. Like that video that he made that comment on, I went back and watched it, and I did mention, I think, that it was a box stock car, but I also mentioned that you needed to check with your track, your local track, to see what you can do to the car to keep it legal for you to be able to race it at your local track. So it's all different. Mini Z has a ton of different rule sets, and so it gets hard sometimes to keep track of it all. But if you're just running local, then run what they allow you to run there. Most box stock classes, you also have to use the factory transmitter, which I don't like to do. I like to use my Noble. So I try to run the advanced, which is either a pro class or a spec class or whatever, so I can run the equipment that I like to run. So anyway, I just wanted to do a quick video on this stuff, you guys. And I mean, I know it ran over a little bit, but that's okay. Some guys are putting up longer videos now, and people are still watching them. But again, if you guys have any questions, I'll help you as much as I can. I got my tent scale stuff built for TCS for May, so I'll probably start doing setup and stuff like that on those cars, and I'll probably run some video on those. The next race after this one, I can't remember if we're running Mini Z again or if we're running 1RC 18th scale oval. If the next ones I'll probably do will be the oval cars, so you guys can see those, because we run those on the same RCP track that we run Mini Z on. We just set it up in an oval, and it's 3 lanes wide, so it's a lot of fun also. If you have the means, you know, or a track that runs them, they are a lot of fun, and they're not that expensive to get into. But anyway, I'll end this one here, and hopefully I'll be able to get another video up either towards the end of this week or beginning of next week, and show you what I'm doing then. Because like I says, it's almost a constant thing for me now, is once I'm done racing one set of cars, I get them clean and get them set back up for the next race, and I move on to the next one. So anyway, we will talk to you guys in the next one, and I hope everybody's having a good year so far and doing some racing and stuff like that. So we will talk to you in the next one.